Controversial opinion, but I don't think CRO normally is that hard. It's just time consuming. There's a million things you could change on the website. What do you test? How do you know where to start? My name's Isaac, previous CTO and tech lead for a 500 million ecom brand in the UK, and I'm going to be telling you my 3 steps for how I break down CRO priorities. Number one is the area of impact. There is no point running a test if only a few users are going to see it. Even if you get a mega big whopping win, you get a 100% CVR lift. If it's on a page that only 1% of users look at, you're capped at 1%. You're never going to get good stuff there. The first priority is to find the biggest potential for W's. If you think about it like fishing, you want to be in a big pond. There are lots of different ways to segment and split your audience, but some of the simple ones are page views. Page views, a lot of people kind of get this a little bit wrong because I'll ask brands, hey, what are your most popular pages? And they go, oh, this product, that collection. Their most popular products and most popular collections. The page would be the PDP or the collection page. You kind of want to split it into their template. So homepage, search page, collection, product page, maybe blogs or something like that. You want to find the hotspots of where people actually use, and they're the things you prioritize. With that as well, you can also look at sessions compared to views. So if you have the product page and you see all the sessions where people have used it, and the collection page, you can also compare that to the amount of views, because some will have way higher views than sessions, which means users look at multiple versions of these pages per browse. So for example, the product page, assuming a user is going to look at a couple different products, it's going to be higher than the amount of sessions. That's also worth looking into. Another simple way to split traffic is to use mobile and desktop. I work with D2C brands, so it's primarily like 70-80% mobile. Very rare to see it 50-50. However, maybe if you do B2B e-commerce, maybe it is more 50-50 or more skewed to desktop, but that's worth considering. Product category. If you stock different types of products, do some of them perform better than others? It could be the traffic, but it could also be the way that you display them and the thing that you're selling itself, especially if it's got a different sort of template or information layout on product pages or collections. And new and returning users, you'd think it's not that different, but messaging actually has a pretty big impact on this. And then also you can look into how the cost of the product, so the revenue per product. This gets a little bit complicated because it completely depends on your store. It's like if you sell smaller ticket items, maybe getting more purchases of the smaller things better. If you sell high ticket items, you might want to prioritize the thing that bring the most revenue. You're going to know this better than I am. So once you've organized and understand the areas of the highest potential footfall, you now want to start looking into journey disruptions. The ideal buyer journey is someone comes to the website, find a product, and they buy it. Super simple, but that's rarely ever going to be more than 10% of your user base. So you need to start looking at where the drop-off is in that journey. The e-commerce journey is landing page, whatever that is, might be the product page, depends where the traffic came from. Browse, which is optional. Sometimes they never leave the landing page. Add to cart. This could be done from the page they landed on. Maybe they landed on a product page, or maybe when they were browsing, they went to a collection, added from there, or they added to the PDP. That could be anywhere. But the next 3 steps, super important. Add to cart, checkout, which is when they go proceed to checkout and they go to the payment form, and conversion, when they actually pay, because checkout without conversion doesn't really mean anything. So it might sound like one event, the purchasing, but the purchasing is 3 very distinct events. Add to cart, checkout, conversion. Remember that. In there, you want to start looking at where the biggest drop off is. So if people aren't browsing, maybe the landing page isn't doing what you need it to, or it's not in front of the right audience. If people are landing on a page and then browsing but not adding to cart, you probably don't have the right information, or they're not getting what it is that they need from the product. And the idea is you combine the high potential footfall with the journey disruption, so you can start segmenting your journeys even further. Which pages have lower add to cart than other pages? For example, if the search page has very high add to cart percent, but then the collection page has a low add to cart percent, maybe your suggestions aren't that good. So always start with the biggest potential things and then work your way down. Point number 2, potential learnings. I always say there are 2 types of CRO. There is, we can change buttons and colors, or we can format information in different ways and try and learn about our users. The most valuable tests are normally not necessarily conversions, but information. So you use the conversions, the AOV, as signals to understand why users are or aren't doing certain things. The benefit of this is you build a more concrete idea around what your user base does and why, and then you use this around the site and honestly around the business. If you think, get a bit, wishy-washy here, but e-commerce sites, it's kind of your interface with your user base. So your product interface users, however they interact with the site, says a lot about the individuals that you're selling to, what they want, how you can best serve them. These learnings can be taken everywhere. It can go to your email marketing, can go to your ads, It can even go into product research. The more people are responding or resonating with certain information types, the more you can talk about that, the more you can integrate it everywhere. I'm just saying. So anytime I would make something like a quarterly CRO map, I'd always start with, I don't want to say the riskier tests, but ones that aren't necessarily a guarantee, ones where we can experiment with information. So using the previous point, what pages do users go on the most? And what can I change about this page to give new information to try new angles and get in the head of a potential buyer? How does that affect add to cart ratio? How does that affect conversion rate? How does that affect average order value? So an example of this, I'm working with a supplement brand at the moment. The first tests I want to implement are 3 very different revisions to their product display page so we can test what users are looking for. The idea behind that is we're going to mix and match them until they become the hybrid, ultimate PDP. And from there, we're going to use that on the collection pages, the search page, the home page, because it's going to help us navigate. If we notice that users are way more interested in the ingredients of a product, and in particular these products that have these ingredients, sure, we can now start highlighting that in different areas. It's looking for these things. You're always looking for how people interact and why. If you have old tests, the best thing you can do is put them together and look at some sort of trend. The navigation test perform better, the messaging test perform better. Whatever it is that seems to have the biggest impact on your user base, use this as a signal for ways you can update and change the website. And finally, number 3, ease of implementation. I feel like this one doesn't even need explaining. If something is difficult and potentially low impact, like why are we bothering? Don't give yourself more work. Always start small. If you think something is going to be difficult to deliver, do the smallest variation of it you possibly can and test it. So for example, if you think bundles are going to be the big thing to boost AOV for your brand, do it on a single page or a single product. Just start small, see if that works. If not, maybe try a couple of different other products, but don't go through the effort of coding something complicated until it's actually done. Always start with the easy stuff. This point is so small, I feel like I need to give extra value. So I'm a previous dev. I'm just going to go over points on Shopify that generally are much more complicated to add than you would think. Bundles or anything related to automatic cart discounts. If something is discounted from the cart level, Shopify rolled out some changes recently whereby you have to basically build an app to do that. You can use third-party apps on the App Store, but the problem is they're difficult to customize and they kind of have you by the balls in terms of their pricing. It'll be good for a bit and then suddenly it's not because you hit a certain threshold. So just be careful about that. Custom cart upsells. Shopify generally have a kind of awkward way of reloading the cart. I'm not going to go into it, but from a technical perspective, cart upsells, they can be tricky to get to work smooth. That's all I'll say. Updating collections and search pages can be tricky if you use a third-party app to organize and give recommendations. So if you're using a third party for search, if you're using Findify, something like that, they kind of control the display and the look of everything that you're working on. So if you wanted to, add some additional value or update how things display, it's a bit awkward. Anything related to the checkout on Shopify is difficult. Shopify is deliberately built to reduce complexity and how marketing teams and other non-technical people edit. The problem is it does remove some of the control and a lot of that is taken from the checkout. You have to integrate with their Shop Pay or use a third party. It's difficult to have a headless checkout. So generally anything on there, just avoid if you can. I hope that was useful. That is how I prioritize, organized, and put together my plans. What did I miss out? What could I have done differently? What do you do? Let me know in the comments.